Hey everyone, welcome back. It's time for another video, another chat between myself and David Person. David, how has your week been?
My week's been great and it just got a lot better, buddy, because I just finished prior to our call immediately watching my Golden State Warriors win the seventh game of the NBA series with the Sacramento Kings, allowing them to go on to face the Los Angeles Lakers in the next series. So we've been very privileged to be in this area of the country where we've watched one of the greater players of all time, Steph Curry, do his thing. So feeling really positive right now, really excited. What a great time to get on a video.
Cool. Well, I know enough about sport to know that that was basketball, and that's about as much as I know about what you just said.
And
Uh,
Dan, I know just about the same amount relative to you in Pokemon. So we're on even footing here, buddy. We're good.
that's fair. I've been watching the snooker world championship has been this week. As we're recording this, the second half of the final is tomorrow. As people are seeing this, the final will have been yesterday, so they'll know who won. I don't know who won yet because they've only played half of the final match.
Now, Dan, what is that? Snooker, snooka, snook? What the hell are we talking about, Dan?
Snooker. It's like pool on a bigger table with more balls and different rules.
Okay, fair enough. I was a big fan of Minnesota Fats as a kid. I had custom pool sticks so that my dad made for me. So if that's what they call it, I don't really call. Maybe it's a Brit thing or something. So yeah.
It's a different game, but it's a similar kind of table cues sort of situation.
Okay, good. Well,
That's the
thanks for
closest thing.
educating us. Yeah, about nothing, Dan. Really good stuff. Let's
Yeah.
move right in.
All right. So, as with last week, we'll start off with the comments that were on last week's video. Thanks again to everyone who's commented and, talked about different things there. We really appreciate the interactions and just getting to get involved in this. So, start off, Grand Party Pokemon says, I've been looking forward to this. I'm glad that you were. Next up, we have. There's one thing I didn't mention. Bren and someone else, I think, later in the comments, mentioned that last week we said that the price of the English Versus set, including buyer's premium, was 187,500 on that Heritage auction. It seems that when I was writing the prices down for that one, I believe I looked at what the next bid would have to be if the auction continued. The actual ending price of that set was 175,000, including the buyer's premium. So still, obviously, a high price. We talked a bit more about last week about what I thought it would be. So still way above what I thought, but just correcting that little detail there because I had the price slightly incorrect on that one. So thanks to people
Yeah,
who.
Dan, yeah, I mean, let's go right into this right now, Dan. People are not watching this for an inaccurate version of things. They need accuracy.
Yeah,
Hashtag, correctness counts. So, Dan, you know what? Let's really pick up our game going forward. All right, buddy.
yeah, definitely need to make sure. Fully hold my hands up. Totally my fault on that one. And let's say if there is something we say and people pointed out in the comments that we were wrong, we will always correct ourselves in the next episode if someone shows us that we were wrong about something. We're never going to, double down and try and go against what was actually correct.
Yes, in other words, we're not going to reenact a Democratic Republican kind of conflict situation.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll
good.
keep, we'll keep that. Well, let's keep the politics to a bit of a minimum. We do not want that to start in the comment section.
Good.
All right, next, you replied to a couple of comments, actually. We had, I am Arno said, David's the best to listen to. I love his sarcasm, gullible wit. The dude is a breath of fresh air in the Pokemon community, just keeping it real. He also said, come on, this dude just gives backhanded compliments like it's Christmas gifts from Santa.
Yeah, and can you imagine? I was raised Jewish, so who even knows what that means? Whether or not it's Santa, it's Hanukkah, it's Christmas. All compliments are good compliments. So let's just keep it up.
Well, if it's Hanukkah, there's more days of compliments, so.
And more days of Pokemon toys. Very
Yep,
nice.
there we go. So we have a Malhar Agarwal said, amazing talk. You guys always do a great job. Can't wait to watch the next episode. He also pointed out that they watched the Heritage auction and pointed out the correct price for that versus set, which I say we had already got that in an earlier one. But thank you again for saying it's an amazing episode and thanks for correcting us. Next, we have Professor Birch said, did you guys discuss David's origin story in collecting Pokemon? Would love to know what flipped the switch for him to collect everything ever printed. Are other high-end non-TCG Pokemon items on David's radar? Well, I think that your origin story definitely needs to be an episode on its own at some point. I don't think we want to throw all of the stories out there in too early of episodes. I think we'll be saving that story for one nice big episode on its own. But if you want to question, do you have any high-end non-TCG Pokemon items that are on your radar that you want to be looking out for?
I so want to address that so much, but I'm going to foreshadow both of those questions, great questions, into our next episode. Because if some current developments happen to materialize this week, by next Sunday, there's a good chance I may be able to show some other high-end cards that might be of interest.
Oh, he specified high-end non-TCG Pokemon items. So, are there any of like the high-end plush or any high-end non-card Pokemon stuff you're looking for?
Why does it? Oh, I see. Non-trading card game.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, if you're gonna give me like TCG, why don't you define the acronyms?
All right.
Why don't you? Okay, because that's not right. You just don't throw stuff at a 62-year-old guy and then expect him to know stuff. You have to educate and then train, then relearn, make a course adjustment, and we go on from there. Okay.
Right.
I may or may not. I really don't know, and I don't care.
Okay. You're a TCG guy.
I'm a
It does seem.
TCG guy, but what I was really alluding to, and it was my bad,
Yeah.
was non-Nintendo Wizards of the Coast TCG. You see, I have to
Okay.
listen better, and so I will turn up my hearing aids for all additional comments and questions.
So there might be something interesting we see next week that is non-Nintendo, non-Wizards of the Coast TCG. It's what we
Yes,
might be seeing. All right. Well,
yes, indeed.
we'll definitely look forward to that. I know you do have some fairly expensive non-TCG items. I mean, the two plush to the side of you, but whenever I've seen you get that stuff, it's very spur of the moment. There never seems to be anything that you're chasing for that. It's more if you see it and you want it kind of thing.
Yeah, and I do. I have some really fantastic banners and some other things. If I sat down and thought
Yeah.
about it, some truly one of a kind stuff. So, but yeah, it's definitely not something I'm focused on.
Right. Next comment. Ruskin Pena, the gentleman you bought your sealed set from, or the sealed inverted stamp cards that we spoke about last week, just said, David is an extraordinary man, grateful for his hospitality and generosity, excited my sealed inverted stamp set is now part of his amazing collection.
Yeah, just a really kind person, and who would have ever thought from not knowing each other a week before that basically he flies out, he stays with my wife and I with his girlfriend, and used us kind of a launch pad into Vegas, and it was just a wonderful time. So I'm mutually as respectful and appreciative as he is.
Well, I'm glad for both of you that, he got a very nice sale, and, obviously you got the new collection edition. We next have a comment from Lamar, said, now I know these videos are semi-interactive. This can be split between multiple videos too. Do you consider Neo Series holo bleeds as common errors? What about square cut cards? I recently learned about Matchprint Expedition cards, not an official release. Do you collect or would you consider collecting any of these? And he also adds, I do enjoy the disco holo on individual cards for sure, but also appreciate the variety of base set variations, whether test prints or released sets. So fun to learn about more in this hobby. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. So obviously the disco holo base set variations, that touches on the sheet that we talked about last week and the different kind of test prints. But so do you want to address any of the questions that he asked?
Dan, you read it so quickly, and I wasn't actually taking notes.
All right,
But let
okay.
me say this: it's all fine. The way that I collect errors is they have to be something that, first of all, has a Pokemon card back. So of some kind, whether or not it's, and most obviously are the typical blue backs. Some are the Japanese oriented backs. I try to when it comes to errors to collect something that's at least repeated to some degree, like the inverted stamps, even if it's not many, they're well known as opposed to a crinkle cut or a miscut or something like that. As far as the only thing that you mentioned in the rush to read it all, because we have no time on a video and no one has any attention span, so we really have to get this quickly, is the match prints and what is the word I want to use? I want to apologize in advance to Rusty at TCA Gaming because I think a lot of those come from him. But no, I don't consider those errors or they're really not cards at all. What they are is they're photographs. They're mini photographs of the cards on a photographic print with a square cut corner. And so it is to me the case that you could almost do that on your own. I'm not saying those came from that. I'm not saying I don't believe they're original. They probably are very much are because that's kind of where Rusty's been in the business since the beginning. But those individual flimsy kind of photographic card representations are they were offered to me at one point, and I was not interested because I figured I could just basically essentially manufacture them myself should I want to.
Yeah, me personally, I don't own any match print cards. They do seem that something that if I were to own them, it would feel like I was owning them as Pokemon merchandise as opposed to owning them as a Pokemon card. Like I do think they have some level of history and stuff to them. They're kind of important in the idea of this is stuff that came from Wizards of the Coast, you know, because obviously it's one of those where you have to follow the provenance back, make sure that they come from someone trustworthy. But I would agree that I wouldn't consider them cards, but I would consider them something collectible, just not something that I would personally collect, or I guess that you would personally collect. To answer the other questions in there, the Neo series hollow bleeds as common errors. So hollow bleeds is when the ink on the front of a card hasn't been printed thick enough. It doesn't cover up all of the foil, so some of the foil shows through in areas that it shouldn't be. Um, I think that all sets have some level of hollow bleeds in. I'm not too up to date on how common it is for the Neo era. I don't think it's, crazy common. I think there's some out there. But hollow bleeds just don't really interest me personally, so I don't keep too up to date on that kind of thing. So like I said, it's prevalent to some degree in basically every set. There is some amount of hollow bleed. And for your other question, square cut cards, I would also say the majority of the time, if you find square cut cards where all four corners are square, that normally means that they are non-factory cut. That normally means that someone has taken a sheet and cut it. It's very, very rare to have something that came from the factory with all four corners square. Obviously, you can pull cards from packs that have one or two corners square, and that's the best way to really think about it. Is if there are one or two corners square and one or two properly rounded and you can tell that they were factory rounded, that's really the best kind of provenance for whether those are legitimate factory errors as opposed to being hand cut from a sheet. In terms of collectability, the square cuts, along with things like miscuts or crimps, there's something where if I pull them myself out of a pack, I hang on to them. Like I have some piles and some binders of just cards that I pulled myself from packs like that, but they're not something I'm ever going to go out of my way to buy myself.
Yeah, and I have the only square cuts I have would have come from original collections that I bought many, many, many years ago because the folks that had collected back then ended up putting them away. But I would tend to, agree completely. They were obviously, I don't know that for sure, but I would certainly believe they were cut from factory uncut sheets at some point. And they're no different other than the corners to anything else I would have in my typical binder.
All right, we have Catch 'em All Collectibles saying just liking and commenting to feed the algorithm and say that these are a nice weekly listen that I hope continues many more episodes. Yet we are all completely slaves to the algorithm, so make sure you guys do leave the likes and the comments and stuff to help bump us up that algorithm.
Yeah, and anything that you guys need me to do to bump the algorithm, let me know. As long as it's legal, I'm up for it. Dan, I should say one more thing. I think it's important. I bumped the algorithm once. I want to be honest with everybody. Once.
You bumped it? What do you mean you
Yeah,
bumped the
I
algorithm?
bumped the algorithm once, Dan, just once.
Oh, you mean you watched the video once?
No, Dan, it's not. It's from a Johnny Dangerfield movie from years ago, buddy. Just keep
All right,
podcasting, okay?
I don't know what that is.
Okay.
All right, next comment is from Rainbow Jim. Now, if people want to read this in full, they can go, because me and Rainbow Jim have had a little bit of a discussion in the comments. Rainbow Jim was saying that they're convinced that there are only 25 Stadium Challenge Deoxys. I know last week we had the discussion about the auction house saying that there were 25 when all evidence we had pointed to 50. And again, I mentioned in my earlier video that went over that evidence. So the evidence that I had was that the tournament was capped at 100 players. That was what was in the announcement for that tournament was given out. A lot of players said that they got the regionals version instead, and a lot of people on PokeGym at the time, including Rainbow Gym themselves, had made a post saying that 50 was a number that they estimated. Rainbow Gym, like I said, was someone who was actually at this tournament, so I went by their posts and I went by posts that other people had. In this past week, Rainbow Gym has actually dug a lot deeper into this and has been able to find a tournament report from written by someone who I think won the seniors division of that stadium challenge, and they had recorded the actual attendance numbers of that tournament, and there were actually only 38 players playing in that tournament. Even though the tournament was capped at 100, they said they could have held up to 100 players. They didn't actually get anywhere near that. So if you take into account that there were only 38 players in the tournament, and then take into account that some people got the regionals versions, then 25, maybe 30 is actually a much more likely number than the 50. So, as I said, the evidence we had at the time was pointing towards 50. Rainbow Jim has pulled up some new evidence, and we've been able to basically look a bit deeper into that one, and it seems like 50 is not the correct number. It seems like it is actually a rarer card than that.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to start seeing a new series on our regular TV channels called, CSI Rainbow Jim. And it's basically going to get into the covert operations aspect of Pokemon. So I'm going to hope. I love Rainbow Jim. Who could argue with someone to go to that level of detail? But Rainbow Jim, don't you ever come near me, because I put my past behind me, buddy, and I cannot have it resurface again. So thank you for nothing. All right, go ahead, man.
Thanks, Rainbow Jim, for digging out that tournament report. It's definitely helpful in figuring some stuff out. All right, so that is all of the comments for this week. I will say that we record these on a Sunday, so if you're commenting on these, if you comment on a Sunday afternoon or on a Monday, we're not going to see it before we record Tuesday's episode. So if you're wanting a comment and have a question read out or something, make sure you comment by Sunday.
All right, should I jump into some stuff? Can I jump into a few things, Dan? I know you've got some
Yep.
other stuff to talk about. I'll just jump in and you can come in with your stuff later, okay?
Yeah, well, we're done with the comments, so jump into whatever you want to jump into.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say there was an incredible auction this weekend that had nothing to do with Pokemon. So I don't know if you heard about it, saw it. You probably did. I
The
can't believe
Yu-Gi-Oh card?
I was. What? The Yu-Gi-Oh card. So
Yeah.
the Yu-Gi-Oh Tyler the Great card that was basically a one of a kind, made for a cancer, a person who was struck with cancer. His name was Tyler Gressel, I guess, back in 2005.
Yeah.
Sold for $311,000 on eBay. And I've been told that's the highest amount of money ever paid for a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah.
So we could, yeah. So the person that won that card had been going behind the scenes to try to make all of that happen and just raising capital and stuff. And so we've been able to formulate some dealings, and I met him. His name is John, and
Okay.
and so I just wanted to mention that I really had fun learning about the history of that card and everything that went into the auction, and that Tyler was actually willing to sell his card at this point in time. Fortunately, he survived and everything. And so that will lead in another piece of foreshadowing, possibly and hopefully into our discussion for next video, not this one, regarding some merchandise I may have acquired, or some cards, I should say, because that TCG thing threw me, that we may be able to take a look at and enjoy from my involvement in that auction, which I'd never, of course, expected to be involved in it, but was kind of fun when it all came to fruition and my buddy was able to win it. So
Nice. Well, just for people who don't know, the reason it was made for Tyler is it was through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. His wish was to, I think, go to Konami, meet with the people who created Yu-Gi-Oh! And while he was there, they created him a card of a character either designed by him or based on him called Tyler the Great. He had the only copy in existence. It was never released in any other way. And this was one that I knew about because it was on like lists of rarest trading cards all the time, but it was one of one. It was given to this kid through Make-A-Wish, and he still had it. And then now I believe he was selling it because he is now running his own sort of charity, or he's setting up a charity in order to help other children who are in similar kind of situations. As the story that I read behind it, he was raising money for that. That was the reason that he was actually selling the card.
yeah, so anyways, really an intriguing thing, and indicative of how many of these lower quantity number of evasive, elusive kinds of high value cards continue to escalate in price for the most part, even despite our current economic circumstances in the country and world. So,
Yeah.
very cool.
And obviously the increased price in just trading cards and collectibles overall is likely what brought this one to market. This one was, it's been sitting in his collection for 20 years or whatever it was. Probably something he never thought he'd sell, but when you just have the opportunity to get that amount of money and do a lot of good with it, sometimes you just can't turn that down. We have seen, I think we've spoken about this before, but we've seen a lot of stuff coming out of collections that you never thought would come out of collections, just because the collectibles market overall and the trading card market has just done stuff that we would never have anticipated.
Yeah. And as an investment advisor, I mean, I say to people all the time, like it or not, it's just cardboard. So, it really is just cardboard. And so when people have these opportunities to monetize, which something they may have never thought of even doing, it certainly behooves them to at least take a good look at it to make that choice. So,
Yeah, definitely.
so something else I did this past weekend was I stopped by Target. I like to stop by Target. Sometimes I pick up an icy. I don't know. You can't really get an icy anymore. You have to go to the kiosk and sign in on your own, and then you got to scan the barcode, and you got to pick blue raspberry or red cherry. I only pick those two. I don't do the Coke one. And then when you get it, you walk around the store, even if you're not allowed to carry anything in the store, and you go straight to the Pokemon card section if they have Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
And so they actually had quite a bit of selection this weekend. But all I was really shopping for was the variants, right? Our master set variants. So because the Scarlet and Violet type of cards that are the promos, the Black Star promos, those are a little bit easier for me to find on eBay and stuff, just because the numbers, and it's so easy to kind of figure out those in consecutive order. So I met a guy while I was standing there, and hopefully you'll throw up some pictures of the variant packs, the blister packs with the multiple packs and cards in there.
Yeah, you sent me some pictures.
And you might just mention what a master set variant is, and for those that don't know, most people do. But I also found a guy that was returning tins. He was returning sealed tins with a U.S. or an English version promo in the front, because inside they were all Spanish packs. So he opened it up to me and he showed me, and they're all in Spanish language. So I'm going to allude to in a moment, or talk about the quality control issues we're seeing in Pokemon these days. But talk about the blister packs, talk about master variants real quick, and also talk about our Pokemon making so many cards these days that they're losing control of the quality control aspect of this stuff.
Well, first, I'm going to make you a little bit upset, Dave. Those blisters, which have the evolution lines in them, those don't actually have variant cards in them. There's been
what are you talking about?
There's been a lot of talk. We've talked about this. There's a lot of collectors talked about this. As a product, it's a pack, and then it's just cards from sets. The cards that are foil in those blister packs have the same foiling as they do in sets, and they're cards that are either foiling the blisters and foiling the sets, or non-foiling both. There's not actually any exclusive cards in those blister packs.
Dan, what is happening? Is there new management at the company? Who switched all this stuff? What's going on? How can I know what to buy or not to buy?
Those evolution line blisters without variants have actually been going on for a couple of years now. It's a product I hate. I really, really dislike the fact that product exists. But I mean, it's one of those things, they put it near the tills. It's usually down low. A kid's walking past it. The kid's been moved away from the main toy section at Target. They're not allowed to go running in the toy aisles, but then everyone has to go past the checkout. It's something for the kid to grab. But yeah, I really dislike that product exists. The fact that they could just make those. I mean, I'm looking here. There's like a pack with a Growlithe Arcanine. There's one with a Magnezone and stuff in. They could just make those Cosmos foils. I mean, I don't know if it's just leftovers from in a print run for the set. I don't know if they're actually printing more cards for these, but it feels like it would be so easy to just change something up to actually make them
like it was done in the old days when it was so exciting and fun to find them. Okay, can you just hold on one sec? Just hold right there.
Okay.
Steph, you got to get the receipt for Target. We're returning all that stuff. Bunch of garbage. Okay, I'm good, Dan.
Yeah.
All right. I'll get that stuff taken back right away. And I'm sorry to waste anybody's time not knowing. I actually thought I was buying something special, and right now my day's pretty much been ruined by that. So thanks.
I think there are a lot of people who buy these thinking they're getting something special, unfortunately. So I guess at least people now know.
Yes. Thank you for educating me I'm the guy that collects the cards and have no idea. So thank you for stepping up to the plate and taking care of that. I appreciate it. All
Yeah,
right,
really. If
forget that whole thing. What?
I was gonna say, if you're looking at when you're looking at the single pack blisters, really the only
Yes.
ones you want to be getting are the ones with the Black Star promos in. Those basically the only ones that have variants in the single pack blisters now.
Okay. All right. Very educational. Thank you as always. I appreciate it. And I'd like to learn early and often so I can stop spending money on things that don't matter.
Yeah,
All right. Let's talk about variants with the Pokemon Center. Another thing that I
yeah,
am frustrated by continuously, other than the Pokemon Center's horrific customer service, is how do I know when something exclusive is coming out? So you'll hear, oh, you've got these packs, or there's these, I don't know what that character is, the Lechonk or whatever, and you can get them when you
yeah,
buy this, or you. But I never get to hear about any of this on my own. I'm the only thing that ever happens if I'm lucky and fortunate enough is one of my Pokemon friends out there will send me something and say, Dave, we know you have no idea this is coming out, or we have an extra
yeah.
code. Can we help you out? Um, how does anybody find out about this stuff to actually be able to participate in a timely manner?
Personally, I just check the Pokemon Center like at least once a week. That's basically all it is. You can set up where you're supposed to get emails with new stock and stuff, but they don't always send those out. I've tried to sign up for emails and stuff multiple times, and I never actually get any emails. The same thing with those codes. Where you apply for a code. Like for the last ones was for the illustration promos. Before that, it was special delivery Charizard and special delivery Bidoof. Those I've applied every time and never gotten a code. Laura sometimes gets codes, but basically it is just we have to keep checking the Pokemon Center. I know if there's something that I see, I normally let you know if I see it in time. But there is no good way, I think, to be tracking those variants other than just constantly looking at the Pokemon Center.
Okay. All right. I mean, I maybe I don't always get all their. I feel like I get some of their messages, but maybe not all of them. And
Yeah,
and of course, they used a lot of blocking tools because yeah, I'm going to be sitting out there trying to create a bot to put in an order for 500 Pokemon Center ETBs or something. But
a lot of
like I
people
said,
do.
yes, no, I know they
Yeah,
do. Unfortunately, it's sad when you're labeled as one of them, and then you can't even get one. So
yeah,
all right.
it's
I'll definitely, pass me some information every once in a while, okay?
yeah. I'll make sure
Especially
every
if numbers on the podcast actually go up ever. Pass
yeah,
me a few code numbers.
yeah, we'll do.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so quality control slash, are they just making too many cards right now because they can and because it's profitable, but it's sort of getting out of control?
Well, so I don't think they're making too many cards. I think they're doing well to be increasing the numbers in order to actually meet the demand to make sure that these products can stay on the shelves. Because the local game stores, I don't care what Walmart and Target have. I don't care anything about what their shelves look like. But local game stores, we want to make sure that they have these products to sell, especially at stores where they're running Pokemon leagues and they're trying to actually get people into playing the game. They need to have the cards there. So I'm actually really glad that Pokemon has massively increased the supply for recent sets. On the quality control issue, I would just say I don't think there's an increased percentage of errors coming out. It's just that they're printing so many more cards that even if the percentage of error cards, whether it's these miscut ones or crimped or something like that, there's just more of them overall. And the fact that when people are pulling stuff like that, they're way more likely to post it on social media or somewhere than obviously they were back in the day. We're just seeing a lot more of it now. It's a lot more publicly visible. I mean, no company is ever going to get 100% on everything quality control. There's always going to be some stuff that slips through the cracks. But I really don't think we're seeing unreasonable numbers from Pokemon. Sometimes it sucks if you get a card that's a little bit off center, it just doesn't look very nice. But I think we're in an all right position, and I think they're doing well by actually being able to keep these sets on the shelves, especially after the last couple of years and everything that's happened, and them changing printer supplier and everything like that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on all of that. I guess my point was not so much more the increasing quantity of cards per set. It just feels to me like it's almost like you're not even getting used to the first set, and here comes the second, here comes the third, and maybe that's always been the case. It's never any different. But I'll be reading about the next series 2 and 3 and 4 or whatever of Scarlet and Violet. But then you're hearing about another one, the new 151 set that's coming out, and so there's just seems to be so much always being thrown that you almost don't just get to just stop and smell the roses for the sets that have been out there, kind of thing.
I think for that one, I think the main reason that that's happening is because English and Japanese have completely different release schedules, completely different sets. In English at the moment, we're looking forward to Paldea Evolved, which is the second Scarlet and Violet set. But in Japan, that's where they're getting that 151 set. That's coming from them. That's a Japanese only set. And Japan just had, another pair of sets come out, which is going to make up some of Paldea Evolved. So I think a lot of the feeling of being overwhelmed by that with how much stuff's coming out is just because of the complete offset between English and Japanese. If you focus only on English stuff, if you only look at the news and releases for English stuff, it's one main set every 3 months on average. So there's 4 main sets a year. It averages out to once every 3 months with 1 or 2 smaller special sets in the middle there somewhere. I also just think that lately they've been doing a lot more build up for a set because we had Scarlet and Violet, and we're still a month out from Paldea Evolved, but we know a lot about the set. If you went back a few years, 10 years or whatever, we would have known the name of a set, but we wouldn't know anything about what's in it until like a week, 2 weeks before, and then it would hit pre-release. Now they're doing much bigger campaigns, so popular social media people, popular YouTubers, popular Pokemon websites are getting exclusive looks at cards so they can make content and do the first reveals of these cards. So they're drip feeding us information leading up to the newest set. So it's not more sets and stuff coming out in English. It's just we're getting the information over a longer period of time for English stuff. And then because Japan is doing just a lot more overall, they're just doing tons of stuff. If you're looking at those spoilers and stuff too, which a lot of the times you will be because it'll inform you what's coming in the English sets, then it just feels like there's a lot of stuff all the time. It feels like there's always something coming every day, every week, whatever. But it hasn't actually increased in the number of sets in a long time.
Okay. What about, I know you said the 151 set or whatever is only a Japanese release. I read something
For
somewhere
now,
that said, what?
for now, the set that's being hyped up is going to be a Japanese release. We don't know for definite if we will get it in English at some point down the line. But for
Because they
now,
kind of
it's
alluded, that's what I was saying, because they kind of alluded it to possibly being what they called our holiday set. I thought our
yeah, yeah.
holiday set might mean that it was a US version. That's all.
Yeah,
English version.
if it becomes our holiday set, that is a possibility. So holiday sets are stuff like Crown Zenith, Champions Path, Shining Fates, Hidden Fates. The sets that you couldn't just go and buy a booster box for. The
Yeah.
sets that you had to get in. You got a couple of packs and a promo in whatever big boxes, and they did a lot of different boxes for that set. That's the kind of holiday set. So there is a chance that that's going to be our holiday set down the line. But for now, it's only going to be a Japanese set. So any of the news that we have coming for 151 is all about the Japanese set.
Okay. All right. So let's go one more thing then. You say they're not printing more. I mean, they're not overprinting or overextending sets. It's all kind of the same. Then how do you explain to me how so many of the new cards that they're coming out within a set are being named as if it's tropical storm season? So, for example, we had Doug Trio, and we had, now we have Wug Trio, and we had something like, the other D, whatever it was. What's the other one? I wrote it down somewhere. Diglett, and now we have Wiglet.
Yeah.
Are they just taking letters of the alphabet and now they're on the W's, and Charizard's going to be Warzard soon?
Well, that is the games. That's the actual video games doing that rather than just the TCG. And it's because we've moved to a new generation. They're each of the Pokemon different, like the generations, are set in a different place around the Pokemon world. And so what they've done with the last couple of generations is rather than it being, entirely new Pokemon, sometimes you get regional versions of that Pokemon, the way that you can do with animals in real life. You can go to different parts of the world, see the same animal, but different versions of that animal in different places around the world. So, like when we went to Alola with Sun and Moon, or Galar with Sword and Shield, as well as some new Pokemon, you see Alolan variants or Galarian variants. And then with Paldea, which is the new region, what they've done is, instead of just naming it, Paldean Diglett, they've made it a little bit different. So it's clear that it is related to the Pokemon Diglett, but it's not exactly the same Pokemon. It's the video game's fault that that's happening. The card game just follows what the video game does.
All right, I know. I that's a great explanation. I love that you're shifting the blame over to video game. I
Yeah.
love them. I
Yeah,
love
you can
them, but
take
I
all the
think
blame.
that they've got a very haughty attitude, and we gotta. It's always good to bring them down at least one step. So good.
We can't talk too bad about video game, because that is where you get most of your trophy cards from nowadays, is those video
I
game
can't
players.
say yes. I that's why I shut my mouth a little sooner than I was
Yeah,
going to.
yeah,
So very kind folks,
yeah.
and really, I appreciate them. So,
I
all
think
right.
everyone knows we're always just playing. They know that we love all aspects of the Pokemon community and of Pokemon, and I think everyone watching knows that we're just screwing about.
Well, yeah. I mean, shouldn't they, Dan? And if not, then give us a call and we'll straighten them out. Okay.
Yeah,
I really, I can give a couple of other perspectives. So, all right, Dan, you're going to post some pictures, I think, real quick, and I'm going to just I take a look through the set. I never do that. I never even open my binders most of the time, but I wanted to look through the set so I could really get a good feel for Scarlet and Violet. So I sent you pics of 3 pictures of
yep,
my characters that I like the most, but not because of anything to do with value. No interest, just the actual colors and pictures and what I saw.
yeah,
So I selected Clauncher, which is 205 of 198. Slowpoke 204 of 198, and Riolo 215 of 198. And I selected the Clauncher because I love the blue and green kind of colors in the ocean of it. And the Slowpoke I selected because it sort of actually reminded me, if you were in Paris and you were sort of on a little lane, and
yeah,
the Pebble Rock lane, and here comes a little Slowpoke coming out of the store, out of the room. And then finally, Riolu, the colors were so vibrant and bright, and it was sort of a wreck in the room. Almost looked like some weights there or something. Probably they weren't. It's just whatever.
yeah, yeah.
But I'd
I
love to
think there
hear
are
from other
ways.
people because that'd be a great engagement thing.
Yeah.
We're real upfront here. We're transparent about what we're trying to do. So, what does anybody else like, Dan? What did you pick out? Any you like? Do you Can we ask anybody to put in the comments maybe their favorite card or two as well?
Yeah, people can definitely put in the comments their favorite cards from Scarlet and Violet. So those three that you picked, they're from the illustration rare level of rarity. So they're full art cards, but they're not full arts of EXs and stuff. EXs, or the full arts or the special art supporters, those are under special illustration rare. These are just your regular illustration rares. Out of those, I think my favorite one is King Gambit. He's the dark type one, so it's set up like a chessboard. He evolves from Bishop, which evolves from Pawnyard, and then on his illustration rare, he's standing there and he's got 2 bishops next to him and then 6 pawnyards in front of him. So they're all set up as though they're going into battle or going into a chess game, however it is. That one is a very, very nice illustration rare. I really, really like that one from the set.
Yeah, I looked at that last night. I thought it was I really caught my eye as well. I think I was looking for ones that maybe just weren't quite that busy, in their
Yeah,
artwork,
yeah,
but the creativity was really cool. So I agree.
yeah. And the
All
um
right,
the
so
the Ralts Curlier God of War set. God of War is an EX, which is the special illustration. Ralts and Curlier is the illustration rares, but it tells the story as it goes through. It's a kid with the Ralts, and then slightly older kid with the Curlier, and I think as an adult with the God of War. So it's the trainer is growing up alongside the Pokemon.
are those cards consecutive, or are they just where are
Uh,
they?
the Ralts and Curlier are consecutive, but then because the God of War is a special illustration rare, it's later on in the set.
Oh, that's great to know. I'll have to go back and look through for that. That's very cool. I
Okay.
did want to apologize. I know I got on really late with you today, but last night was, and I guess I should say, speaking of dates as well, was my weekly date night with my wife, and we got home late. So it was kind of tiring at that point, but I'm still ready to go. You know me, lots of energy at
Yeah.
62. So I go in the bedroom, the bathroom. I put on some oin cologne, and only to have my wife, who says to me, "You know what? Your scent right now feels like I'm going to toxicroak." So she said, I'm getting tired, buddy. I'm getting drowsy. You better hurry up, Slowpoke. So I still see there's an opportunity there. And so I still want to wiggle it for her. So just so she'd know, Dan, after 25 years of marriage, that my great tusk could still get Mabo stiff. And so, Dan, here's what happened that was the sad part of last night. My wife, after all that, curls up into a nest ball and delivering a crushing blow to both my ego and my spew possibilities. So that was last night, Dan, and
Right.
so I know
All
it
I'm
got
going to
me
ask you
into
about
it.
that is, what do you want me to do with that story? How am I going to edit that into the podcast?
You don't edit it. That's my story. That's what happened, Dan. You just put it in the podcast. It's not a big deal. People are listening right now. I think we can all relate. This is not their people get home late. They have certain, intentions. It doesn't always work out. It's life. Dan, you got to take lemons and make lemonade. There's no editing required here.
All
Everybody
right.
knows Uncle Dave. He keeps it real. He keeps it transparent. He keeps it accountable, and he keeps it Pokemon night and day. He lives the Pokemon way.
I'm going to watch the analytics of this episode very, very closely and see if during that 30 seconds we get a spike up or we get a spike down in people turning the episode off.
Yeah, you have to remember, I used to be a social media entrepreneur just like you are, right? I
Yeah.
used to be someone who posted back in the day when I had time. Not very much, not very often, not very well, but I did it occasionally.
Yeah.
And I studied the demographics, and it's 28-year-old boys, okay? Just like you and I once were. You not so long ago, me extremely far ago. But the thing is, this is reality for these guys. They understand what I'm talking about. Post the stuff. They'll get it. We'll get it. They'll understand. And we just keep posting, Dan. We can't sit there and
All
please
right.
the
Well,
world. Okay. We got to do what we do.
we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Thanks, man.
I'm
Thanks for
just
studying the analytics.
I'm just thinking of how many card images I have to find for that.
No, that's the whole thing is I've got them. I have the whole set, Dan. It's all built out already. I haven't done the variants, but if you need anything, let me know. I could just take
I've
some nice.
I've got the images. It's just editing them into the video.
Okay.
It's gonna
Fair
be,
enough. Good for you.
I'm gonna have
Dan,
30 minutes of just going back and forth of putting different Pokemon into your story.
I understand. I understand.
All right.
Maybe next time my stories will be shorter, less Pokemon, and maybe less
There we
pictures,
go.
and I'll just shut up.
All
Dan,
right.
you know that I've also recently been able to luckily acquire is it called Oceania? Is that how I would say it, Dan?
Oceania.
Okay,
Yeah.
Oceania. I acquired tell me what I acquired, Dan. Tell the
It was
crowd what I acquired so I
the Ultra
can.
Balls.
Yeah,
It
what
was
is it, Dan? What did I get?
So from the international championships. So there are 4 international championships around the world each year, and each of them comes with a promo. It's going to be the same card as a promo for each of the 4 tournaments, but the symbol on the card is going to say which of the 4 tournaments it was from, whether it's Latin America, Oceania, Europe, or North America. This time it was Ultra Ball, and what you sent me pictures of that you got was the players version, the staff version, the top 8, and the champion from Oceania. So this year, you're still on the lookout for Europe. The last few that they've had, you haven't had to worry about Europe because they held European internationals in Germany, and they actually do the cards in the language of the country that's hosting it. The only time that they've done all 4 in English was the very, very first ones when they did double colorless energy. After that, the Latin America one has always been in Portuguese, so you've never had to worry about that one. And then barring a couple, I think the second one was Ultra Ball, which was Ultra Ball as well a few years back. That one had the Europe one in English. I think that one was in London as well. And then after that, the European one was always in German. So this year, you're going to have to be looking out for 3 different ones. You've got Oceania, Europe we're still working on, and then North American Internationals hasn't happened yet. But yeah, what you picked up was all 4 of the variants from Oceania.
Okay. All right, good. That's great to know, and I'm glad you. I always struggle with remembering exactly. I know double colorless was the harder one because there was more of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the the competitions that had the English versions,
yeah.
but I always struggle to remember why the others are not exactly the same. So
Yeah, so it was just after that first year they decided to do the promo in the language of whatever country they were actually hosting the tournament in. So because Latin America is always in a Portuguese speaking country, it's always been in Portuguese, and then
okay,
the European one has jumped back and forth between English and German. Oceania and North America are always going to be in English, of course, but
Got it.
yeah.
All right. I only had one more thing that was on my particular agenda, and I actually passed right over it before because once you told me that the evolution blister pack stuff, like from Target or whatever, wasn't anything, it sort of just completely left my mind. So,
You went on
but
a downward
you know,
spiral and started telling
yeah,
us
downward
about your
spiral
failed
and no
date.
reason to even address it anymore.
Yeah,
Thanks. But I did want to mention that I think I'm very interesting in this respect. All of the packs that I have gotten over the years have come from typically the kinds of collection boxes, tins, or blister pack promo packs that I've tried to get the variants from.
yeah,
Because I've never opened any Pokemon packs other than the very few handful of broadcasts I did a couple years ago when I did them on film. So my
yeah,
clarification would be for myself personally, I've actually never opened any Pokemon card packs. And I think people would wonder, how can that possibly even be? And it's because I think as I thought back about it, I realized very young that I had addictive propensities with respect to gambling. And so, when was very unsuccessful in the casinos at age, I was in there at 16, 17. I had a huge beard, so I kind of finagled my way in. And so this is part of my story that people have heard. Once I lost a lot of money very, very young, I realized this was a bad thing and I needed to stay away. Ironically, my career as a financial advisor involves managing money, which is
yeah,
just, if you're investing in the stock market, as far as I'm concerned, legalized gambling. But in and of itself, that's the only gambling I do. And I've always considered the value to continue to be in sealed products and just buy my sets outright from people that make them. And I've had some very strong
yeah,
extensions of time and still work with some folks that have make my sets for years now. And so that's how I've acquired the sets. But when people wonder, well, how do I have all this sealed material still that I sell on the websites and all the other stuff? And I don't weigh it or anything because I just don't care.
yeah,
And I want people to still have that opportunity to find good things. It's all come out of Pokemon sealed product, but ironically, never really out of the boxes or stuff that I would never open just because, from an investment standpoint, I sort of knew inherently, and trying to use my intellectual as far as my gambling strategies to maintain a better investment kind of process. So.
yeah. And plus, for collecting, the way you do it is definitely the correct way. I mean, the way I do it, where I'm opening loads of packs and stuff, that is one of the worst ways to actually put a set together. Like I get to do it because I make the videos and stuff on it where I'm opening the boxes, and that's how I justify still getting to like open boxes and stuff. If I was just trying to purely go the most efficient and cost effective way of collecting all this stuff, I would just be buying the sets because that's always works out cheaper than trying to do it from the boxes.
Right, right. Yeah. So I guess fortunately I figured that out early enough to not cost myself too much.
Yeah,
I think it really is a lot. I think people really have a tremendous enjoyment out of building their own sets and opening a lot of stuff and trading with
yeah,
others, but it can become really costly, especially in times like probably I guess Sun and Moon was before, or Sword and Shield was before. So I guess times like Sword and Shield, when we knew the distributions were so tough for Chilling Rain
yeah.
or Evolving Skies that you could open multiple cases, 12 boxes, 18 boxes, and you might not still have opened every card. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So Sun and Moon was before Sword and Shield, but Sun and Moon is really where it started. There was a huge shift between XY and Sun and Moon, and it was to do with the introduction of those rainbow rare cards. Because when you had XY, you had each set would have a handful of full arts and one or two gold cards. And generally, it was we found when me and Laura were opening stuff, about a case would get you the vast majority of a set. If you open a case, you may be missing a couple of cards that you have to trade for. But then when Sun and Moon came around, suddenly there's 20 full arts and dozens of rainbows and a dozen golds, something like that. And the rainbows that you're hitting once every other box, maybe once every 3 boxes. It just came to that point where you would have to buy and open so much to actually even have the odds of hitting a set. And then it only got worse with Sword and Shield. And I think it was Evolving Skies where PokeRev did a stream where he opened 3,000 packs of Evolving Skies, and I'm not even sure if he put an entire set together. I think he may have still been missing a card or two at the end of that. It's just crazy amounts of packs that you would have to actually open, especially when you think back to when it was originally out. You could finish base set from less than 2 boxes. And then into the Ruby Sapphire era, you're going to need 3-4 boxes. Towards the end of the Ruby Sapphire era, if you get a case, you're getting basically everything except the gold stars, and you probably get 1 or 2 gold stars out of the 3, 2 or 3 that are in the set, and then it just spiraled. Starting from Sun and Moon, it just went to basically unmanageable levels to realistically think that anyone was putting sets together from opening boxes.
It's so interesting when you talk about that, as the number of boxes have extended out to make a set, because the sets haven't necessarily correspondingly moved up in price from a lot of those earlier vintage years. And I probably, as I just kind of thinking in the back of my mind, it probably has a lot to do with that same gambling mentality that I was alluding to, that these packs and these boxes, are bought so people can get in and try to buy a single pack, or in a box break where they're not looking to build a set anymore. They're just looking for a one tremendously valuable kind of card, and hoping they win the lottery to get it. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And also, we talked about earlier in this video, they're printing a lot more of newer sets. So now if it takes, 10 cases to finish a set rather than just a case, but they're printing 10 times as many cases, there are the same number of complete sets possible out there. It's just the fact, so like a set overall maybe isn't going way up in value because the cards aren't actually rarer, they're just rarer within opening the packs. The actual distribution, the actual total number of the cards probably isn't that much rarer than the rarest stuff from XY. Some of them may even be slightly more common because of the massively increased print runs of these sets. It's just that when it comes down to the individual person building a set, that's where the problems fall, and that's why the values and stuff lie the way they are.
And my advice, my public service announcement for maybe the 1 or 2 people who would still be watching this at this point in time, I would say, if you're going to buy any complete sets, because we've talked about this before and we'll continue to talk about this. If you're going to buy any complete sets off eBay or wherever, make sure, especially when they call those complete sets master sets or whatever they mean by completeness, make sure you always ask for the number of cards they have in the set. And that's critically important because so few sellers these days will actually list the number of cards, reveal the exact cards, and they just say, we have all the secret rares and we have all the rainbow arts. And yet when I reach out to each one individually, they'll say, well, yeah, mine has 100, 262. Mine has 284. Mine has 312. So if you don't ask that specific question to at least lead you into the next area of information gathering you need to get to make sure you're actually buying a set that has all of the cards you can potentially open from packs, as well as, if you're interested, all of the variant type of promos, as well as the pre-release and staff cards, etc., you will not know, and you're just easily taken advantage of. And you don't want to wake up 2 or 3 or 4 years down the road only to find out you're missing 6 critically important cards because that seller didn't reveal or didn't choose to call them a part of the master set.
Yeah, a lot of people will use the term master set to just mean what you can pull from packs, whereas generally a lot of people who've been collecting for a lot longer, both of us included, will use master set to mean including every variant that has the same original set symbol and set number. Because, for recent sets, the pre-release promos wouldn't go into what we would call a master set because they're Black Star promos. So they go into, the Scarlet Violet Black Star promo master set rather than into the Scarlet Violet set master set. And I have seen people include, those Black Star promos in there, but not include some other variants. So it is always, as you say, very important to look through the photos of what's on the eBay listing. If they put a description, great, read through the description, or ask them the question, make sure you know exactly what you're getting, because there are so many different people using the same definition for so many different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
All right, so last thing that I wanted to mention for this episode was I actually wanted to give a shout out to Newcastle Card Show. You should definitely check those guys out. If you go on Instagram, Newcastle Card Show, all one word, I'll put their logo and I'll put their @ and stuff just down here. This is a card show that is being done in Newcastle, which is near where I'm originally from, where I grew up, and it's kind of it's a much smaller card show than what you're probably expecting, what you've seen on Instagram, some of these bigger card shows around, but it's a very fan-led one. It's a lot more grassroots, kind of raising funding, doing their own thing. This is their first one that they're doing. I think they're hoping to turn it into a much bigger project and keep it going. And it's great to see the northeast of England getting some love from the fans in this kind of thing. So I always want to promote them, make sure that people are aware of that. If you're in or near the northeast of England, their Instagram has a link to where you can get tickets. I know they're selling through the tickets pretty quickly, so if you're interested, go and jump on there. They'll have a lot of good stuff going on. There's a lot of people, vendors, raffles, things going on. I think all of the kids who go, any kids that go, are all leaving with something, I think they've said. So just go and give them a quick look, check it out, and I would appreciate it, just because, as I said, it's the hometown, so got to give it a shout out.
Yeah, Brits supporting Brits. You got nothing wrong with that. Okay, Newcastle Card Show. Good for you guys. Good.
There we go. The actual show is on the 10th of June, so it's a little way out. But as I said, they are selling through the tickets pretty quickly. So if it's something you're interested in, I'd go and check it out pretty soon on their Instagram or their site. All right, and I think that's enough for today. I wonder how many people have actually made it through to this point. But hey, if anyone did, thanks for watching the whole way through. Thanks for however much you've watched, however much you've watched of the previous episodes. Definitely let us know what you thought in the comments. Let us know your favorite cards from Scarlet and Violet. That's what we were talking about. And anything you want to ask or say, just let us know, and we will read it out, discuss it at the start of the next episode. Anything else you want to say before we end, Dave?
No, just, of course, how appreciative we are for watching and even being interested in anything that I have anything to do with. As well as, I'd like to say that in the spirit of humor, if I happen to have offended anyone during our broadcast, anything was unintentional, all with the most Pokemon fun intended. This is a hobby for innocence and wonderment and love. And so, even that was it Rainbow Jim? Was that the gentleman's name?
Rainbow Jim, yeah.
Rainbow Jim. Even Rainbow Jim knows that. And look, he's out there in the trenches trying to get all this stuff sorted out. So yeah, our appreciation, our thanks, and I hope that you guys will find this interesting enough to tune in at least one more time.
Yeah. Keep watching. The more you watch, the more we'll make. All right. Well, as I said, that's it for us for today. So we will see you again next week.
Bye-bye.
I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who chooses to support me on Patreon. If you'd like to get involved, help support the channel, and see some behind-the-scenes content, click on the link in the description. Thanks again.
Thanks for watching. Check out some more videos right here.
And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome Pokemon content from DJ Gigabyte.
Gotta catch 'em all!